Greetings. I'm going to discuss some of the foundations and the differences of Luciferian witchcraft as a magic practice from the traditional Luciferian witchcraft lines to the ideology and the more advanced modern magical practice. Luciferian witchcraft, as it is, and as I have named it, is more or less a practicing, living tradition that has been practiced for an extended period of time by various individuals. One of the direct lines of succession or initiation is through the works that I obtained of Charles Pace, known as Hamarat. I will be publishing a book on his satanic witchcraft practice in due course. But Luciferian witchcraft as a grimoire and a tradition is a mode of spiritual and ritual practice that is not dependent solely upon the constant lines of initiation. Originally, the text in the grimoire that became the living tradition of Luciferian witchcraft was a solitary practitioner's guide that I applied with a small non-traditional coven of Luciferian witches. Now, one may say, what's the difference of witchcraft and magic? Well, witchcraft, and I'm referring to Charles Pace in this instance because he was around in the formation of the modern Wicca movement in the 50s, 60s, and 70s in England. It had nothing to do with whitewashing and taking away and having a one-sided light concept. Witchcraft is a balanced practice, and it's a spiritual practice of understanding nature, understanding your role in nature, how those connect, and a spiritual practice of cunning practice based around that. That involves the use of herbs, candle magic, all of those folk magical systems that go back to ancient Mesopotamia. It doesn't necessarily involve going through degrees extensively or trying to reach a certain area of crossing the abyss as you would do in Luciferian or Adversarial Magick. There's different speeds of people for different speeds of, within the Luciferian tradition. Not everyone wants to go and cross the abyss right away or through various avenues, as you'll see with my various grimoires. Some prefer to have their consistent life continue in a form of self-excellence and reaching for that, but not going 200 miles an hour about it. People that are really interested in the folk and kind of the superstitious areas of ritual practice. Specifically, there are people who are interested in the medieval mode of Luciferian practice. And while they may find a harmony within the more contemporary Luciferian ideological practice in their home life and among their coven, they wish to have that type of spiritual practice as a means of fulfilling the darker emotions and the fantasy aspect, which is fine. So that's where Luciferian witchcraft comes in. There are many elements to what made the practice, and you'll find a lot of them in Luciferian witchcraft. The Witch's Sabbat. Now, the Witch's Sabbat is not from the so-called sabbatic groups in the UK that I'm known to have a rivalry with. Let's just put it this way, that Austin Osman Spare, going through Kenneth Grant, and Charles Pace, and even Aleister Crowley are the formulators of the sabbatic and dreaming practice of witchcraft. And going forth to the Sabbath is a dream projection. and a meeting of astral bodies in a subconscious desire working. And entering that practice, there's a mode that we apply to doing it. Now, left-hand path is totally different from any other tradition within witchcraft in that we venerate and seek the inner id, or the holy guardian angel, what I call the daemon Azalusel, and expanding upon our power in that way. That's how witchcraft is used. Luciferian witchcraft practitioners do not curse necessarily or do malefic, any type of malefic spell. We see the demons and the spirits of the earth and the astral plane as initiators and teachers, and as they fill us, we devour that and gain that wisdom over time in our subconscious. We have a balanced process, and we don't want to end any of the cycles of life or the earth. Quite honestly, Christianity is a worshiper of death. It tells you to do everything that is against life, intelligence, and self-excellence. Luciferian witches really embrace the darkness outside and within and use it to our advantage. There's an adversarial light. I presented like the workings of Cain, using the Lord's Prayer as an initiation process. These are all from traditional elements of witchcraft, which I gained a lot of insight and practice upon in the late 90s and early 2000s. So you understand that practicing Luciferian witchcraft as a witchcraft tradition is different than the initiatory process, like if you go into the Order of Phosphorus, because it's a continual testing of self, whereas the Coven practice or the Grimoire practice is an experience but drawn out over a period of time. I wanted to answer that just so people can understand. As I previously described, the Sabbat and the connotation regarding the process of atavistic resurgence in witchcraft practice is significant, and Kenneth Grant actually had more to do with bringing forth Austin Spare's independent witchcraft practice in this way. Interestingly enough, Charles Pace was a friend of Austin Spare's and Aleister Crowley's. As all of you probably know, Aleister Crowley was the one who penned and created the first and earliest Wicca rites Gerald Gardner used. All of the structures of witchcraft practice, from Wicca to anything else, is derived from the Luciferian practice inherent within Aleister Crowley's symbolic kind of worldview. One of the quotes from, let's say, Hidden Lore, quote, in the later sabbatic rite, this majestic concept became the flying witch which flew through the night, straddling a broomstick, and the broom was, late period of the Druids, a symbol of the sun, onward to the Sabbat rite being a symbolic of the devil's tail. All are instances of reversal and symbolic of will and desire turning within and down to the subconscious regions. That's the very fountainhead of the Luciferian ideology. And as I was practicing this with my coven, I was further developing all of the things which were rushing through my head through my spiritual practice. And you have to understand that as all of these things, it's like having so much to do in a very short window of time to do it. So you're constantly taxed at doing the text and all of these workings. Anyone who has the true will in their forefront understand what I'm talking about. It's something you love, but it can become very taxing at times. So it went beyond a spiritual practice early on as my own high priesthood and the leader of the coven. The Order of Phosphorus established an initiatory structure which was based out of the witchcraft practice. And the entire foundation of that is symbolic of the medieval devil, which is, of course, a symbol of the interior liberated will, and is not to be taken in the literal context of good versus evil. One of the ritual text, Conjuration of Cain, is a symbolic practice using, and an adversarial light. I published the Galilean version of the Lord's Prayer reversed, as a mean of really invoking the essence of Cain, who was the first, according to this Hebrew text, the first Satanist and murderer, the son of Samael. His daughters, of course, were the ones, according to Hebrew tradition, the Watchers took as wives to beget the giants, the Nephilim. This practice is highly symbolic of the Luciferian who becomes as Nephilim, which is the union of the Watchers and Earth together. And that's what a Luciferian is symbolically. Keep in mind the invocation of Cain by the forge of blackened fire. The blackened fire is the gift of Azazel, which each strike I summon the elder daemons, and these are the ones who instruct us of great knowledge through our practice and kind of guide us and exist with us. Angels who are ensorcelled by black light. I call them angels in reference to we're using the format of course, the traditional Hebraic concept of angels being messengers. In all of my other works, Mask 'em Whole, going through the YouTube to know, to the forthcoming Dragon of the Two Flames, we're not dealing with the Christian frame really at all. So we're using an older practice. Now this older practice, as you see now, and as I didn't really know then as much as I do now, it's inherent in magical practice. All those early pre-Christian practices, the prideful strengthening of the will, the search for self-excellence embodied in the concept of the hero of the ancient world, all those are very anti-Christian because they strive for the individual to be accountable and great unto his or herself. The rite of Belial for workings towards the mastery of the earth. All of these things, if you practice in a tight-knit coven, you're going to find very, very rewarding and beneficial. That is the difference from the normal traditional Luciferian adversarial magic practice, because some people have no interest in the folk magic or Hebraic kind of frame of Luciferian witchcraft. They're interested in the concepts of Mask 'em Whole, the Persian YouTube to know, loosely maybe some Goetic stuff, but more the earlier concepts. And that's fine. It's just about finding what calls to your blood, what calls to you, and using it accordingly.